Hey, Fight fans, this is Dr. Don Four here. I want to talk to you about an annotated bibliography. One of the most important things that you will do in a research project. And the reason I say this is it is very critical that you conduct a good literature review no matter what paper you're writing, a small paper for an assignment or a big paper for a master's thesis. And so the annotated bibliography is a great way for you to find studies that are relevant to your research and then put them into the words that you would use in your paper and then set them aside. And then when you get ready to put your literature review together or justify something in your introduction or your methodology, then you have already well written overviews of a really good article that will help you. And so it's not just an overview of an article either. You know, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find a study that looks at basically the same thing you are and disputes it or supports it. You're reading to find out if you're writing about leader-member exchange and how it's related to job satisfaction. Well, you want articles that are about leader-member exchange studies, you want studies that are about job satisfaction, and you want studies that combine job satisfaction and leader-member exchange. You're not necessarily worried about that they fit into the field that you're writing about. If you're writing about a hospital, that doesn't mean that a business looking at leader-member exchange and job satisfaction wouldn't be an important find for you to use to justify your research. And so the annotated bibliography is so important. So let's kick back. I've got a few things I want to say about it, and then I want to show you a couple of examples. So an annotated bibliography is a list of citations, books, articles, studies, but it needs to be something that supports what you're trying to or speaks to what you're trying to research. Each citation is followed by a brief, usually about 150 to 200 words, descriptive and evaluative paragraph, the annotation. The purpose of the annotation is to inform the reader of the relevance, accuracy, and quality of the cites assorted. And I take it a little bit further, and I use it if I'm going to write a research paper. I find studies and I look for the right studies that fit what I'm trying to accomplish in my paper or supports or disputes what I'm doing. And then I do an annotated bibliography, and that way I've got the verbiage ready to go to put in and then tie together to make a very good literature review, hopefully. Abstracts, there's a difference between an annotation in an annotated bibliography and an abstract. Abstracts are purely descriptive summaries of what you find in the journal articles. The abstract's designed for someone to pick it up and kind of know what's in there without having to read the whole thing, to pique their interest and make them want to read the whole thing. Annotations are descriptions and critical. They're descriptive and critical. They expose the author's point of view, clarity, appropriateness, expression, and more importantly, they speak to the point you're trying to make. You may only need a portion of that study, and you don't need an overview of the whole study. You need a critical analysis of what that author said about what fits into your research goals. So you want to know some things. So you want to know if the author is credible. Where do they come from? Have you seen them cited on other sources? If you were in a dissertation, you would spend 2, 3, 4 years reading everything about your topic. If you're doing job satisfaction, you would know every article that's good, every article that's bad. And then if you looked at the references, you'd start finding that a lot of the same authors are cited. These are the folks who are respected in the field and that researchers feel like they have something to offer. So those are the ones that you want to seek out. When was it published? You want as current as possible. Although some of your seminal thinkers in some areas might be 20, 30 years old, but they're still relevant. Is it the first edition? Is the source published by University Press? Is it popular? Is it come from a good journal article? Is it peer reviewed? Those are things you want to look at. Is there a bibliography? Is the information covered fact, opinion, or propaganda? You want to really analyze before you decide that you want to use this article as a study to support your research. Um, and then when it finishes, you want to include the complete APA referenced citation. Look at the scope and main purpose of work, any biases you might detect, who was the intended audience or the control group that they used, how does it relate to the study that you're doing, and then maybe a summary context about the findings. It should be 100 to 200 words. They don't have to be very big. This is, and I don't know what the word count is on this, but this is one that I've done for a utility affordability article that I'm writing. And so you notice that I write like I would put into my paper. I try to cite references, and I try to make it as APA as possible so I don't have to go back and do that later. And so this is a quick example. This is a sample ATA notation from the Purdue OWL resource, which is a great resource for APA. Um, this is short but very good and very informative. And that's me. So I want to real fast take you to this is some examples of annotated bibliographies, and the key is to write it like you would put it into your research paper. Don't say I believe, or this paper, this research. Say things like Smith 2001 says this. Indicates that the three most important elements in job satisfaction are this element, this element, this element. Try to write it as if you would put it into your paper, and say I've got references cited, and this one is another article. And you notice that I cited this reference here when I wrote this paper, and so I went and looked at that paper because Reynolds' paper seemed to be pretty good. He was popular in the field, and so I was able to create an annotated bibliography. Now these are longer probably than 200 words, but you remember I'm writing mine to possibly use in research. And so then I've got another one here. Again, they're probably a little bit longer than 200 words, although I'm not sure. I'd have to do a word count. But this is what it should look like. And, what I'm showing you here is a series of articles that I found that support some research that I've done in the past. And it helped me write one of the papers that I've published. So if you do that, I think you'll be really successful. And something I want to show you just to indicate how important this is. This is an article, Relationships Among Service Orientation, Job Satisfaction, and Organizational Commitment. I use this in a lot of my classes because it's a great example of how you look at the variables in your study. The variables here well pointed out right in the title, Service Orientation, Job Satisfaction, and Organizational Commitment. So if you grab this article, it has a good introduction, talks about what it is. You notice they use the tourist industry in Taiwan, and they talk about it in the introduction, but that isn't what this paper is about. This paper is about service orientation, job satisfaction, and org commitment. And by gosh, they're going to tie it to the tourist industry to help them improve the tourist industry. But a lot of your samples and model won't be from the tourist industry. They can be from anywhere, depending on what you're studying. So keep that in mind. Also, if you look, when you get to literature review, what you should do is they have a literature on service orientation. They have literature on job satisfaction. They have literature on org commitment. And they have tied them all together. Okay, and that completes their literature review. But if you want to look at a good example of what I'm talking about in annotated bibliography, this is from the service orientation variable that's in this study. And then go to Kim et al. 2005, and you look at this entire paragraph, and they're pointing out key elements that will help them in their research study. And that's a good size annotated bibliography right there. And so had you created this Kim et al. Article, and et al. Just means there's a lot of authors. If you created this Kim et al. Article into an annotated bibliography that would support your research, then when the time came, you just pop it right into your paper and makes life a lot easier, and it improves your paper. So the annotated bibliography is critical. That's the whole point I want to make. Please give me a call if you have any questions, and I look forward to reading your annotated bibliography. So this is Dr. Don Foer saying thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you in cyberspace.